Hi, good afternoon. This is Mr. Cassidy, and today I'll be covering our assignment on Big Ideas 2.3, 2.4, and the study guide part 1. This hopefully will clarify any questions you have prior to our first half of the chapter test, which covers the same material. All right, let's jump into it. So we're going to start with problem 1. We have 3y is less than or equal to negative 9. Let me just adjust my pen really quick. There we go. That should be good. All right, so I would divide by 3 on both sides. Divide by 3. And what that's going to do is give me y is less than or equal to negative 9. We don't need to change the inequality since 3 was a positive number. And that's going to be my solution. Now, tricks on graphing. Remember, less than or equal to have more ink. Greater than or equal to have more ink. So when we fill in the circle in the border, we're going to use more ink and fill it in. Less than or greater than symbols have less ink. They don't have that equal sign, so we actually leave it open. We just use a circle there. Okay, so here we have more ink right at negative 9, so I would put a solid dot at negative 9. And we can always use that trick that y is less than. I'm going to use the arrow trick here. And go, okay, it needs to be an arrow going to the right. That matches with this choice here, and you would put it right on the dot at negative 9. Okay, let's continue on. The next problem is practice with a negative number, very similar. I'm going to divide by a negative 9. And when I do that, I need to circle that inequality sign so that I remember to switch it around. Y is less than negative 1 here. Less ink means less ink, so I start with an open circle at negative 1, and my arrow goes to the left. This matches right here. Okay. Remember too, to graph it using that arrow trick, it only works when the variable is on the left-hand side. It does not work when the variable is on the right. So if the variable's on the right, if we had negative 1 is greater than x, remember to flip it to the left-hand side. Keep x with the pointy bit. X goes here. And then negative 1 goes with the wide part of the mouth. And then you can use the arrow trick. This becomes an arrow like this. Okay, let's carry on. Here we got a pretty tricky word problem. I've already attempted this video now twice, and both times this word problem really messed me up. So I'm trying it for a third time here. A weather forecaster predicts that the temperature in Antarctica will decrease 8 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's going to be a minus 8 degrees Fahrenheit each hour for the next 6 hours. So 6 hours is actually sort of a distractor in this problem. Write and solve an inequality to determine how many hours t, hours is going to be t, that it'll take for it to drop at least 36 degrees Fahrenheit. So what that means is negative 8 times t, because t is the number of hours, negative 8 is the temperature per hour. When we see words like per and each, that usually means multiply 8 degrees Fahrenheit each hour. That's our little clue that it's probably an 8 times a number. And since it's dropping, we're going to use negative 8. Now we want it to drop at least 36 degrees, which means we want it to go lower than dropping 36 degrees. And I've messed this problem up a bit because I originally did a greater than symbol. It's tricky because we want it to drop, if it's starting at 0 or wherever is the normal amount, we want to drop more than or equal to the 36 degrees, so dropping minus 36. That matches with our last option here, and so I would divide by a negative 8 to solve. And since it is dropping by a negative, I'm going to switch my symbol around. I divided by a negative, and I get a positive 4.5 here. So the solution is 4.5 hours. Okay, if this one stumped you, don't sweat it. This is a tough problem, and it's really confusing because both of these are negative numbers because it is decreasing and it is decreasing 36 degrees. And so we want it to go beyond that 36-degree decrease to even lower temps. That's why it's written that way. Okay, what's their mistake? Describe it and correct it. Well, here I see that mathematically they divide by -4. Divide by -4, they got a +8. And so they've got their solution. So the border point is correct. The only problem is they divided by a negative, but they kept the inequality as a less than symbol. Somewhere in this step right here, they should have reversed it and reversed the symbol. So the inequality should be reversed when dividing both sides by -4. Okay, great. Solve the inequality here. Here I would divide by 10 on both sides and get n is on the greater than side or equal to a -2. Now it's sort of tough to read it backwards like this. N is greater than -2, so it might help to switch it around. N is on the greater than side. Sorry for my terrible drawing here. -2. So more ink, more ink. I'm going to do a solid dot there. Arrow to the right. Explain how solving 2x is less than -8 is different from solving -2x is less than 8. Well, the main difference is flipping the inequality sign when I divide by the negative. So here, this one says the symbol is reversed in both inequalities. That would be incorrect. The symbol is never changed when solving an inequality. That's incorrect. It's only changed when we divide by a negative. You divide both sides by -2 in option 3 here. So that's going to be correct. You reverse the inequality then. Option 4 is not correct because it's saying to reverse the inequality when you divide by a positive. That is not correct. Okay, which inequalities are solved using the division property of inequality, where the inequality symbol needs to be reversed? So we need to pick all the ones where it gets reversed. Well, this would be reversed because I divide by a negative. Not this one. Here, I divide by a negative. So, yep, that reverses it. Not this one, divides by a positive. Here, both of these divide by a negative, so they get reversed. Okay. Compare solving multi-step inequalities and solving multi-step equations. The same steps can be applied when solving a multi-step inequality and multi-step equation, except that when each side of an inequality is multiplied or divided, I don't know what the drop-down has, but let's go with that, by a negative number. Negative number, the inequality sign must be reversed. It's got to be something like that. Without solving, how can you tell that the inequality, this, has no solution? Well, this is what we got to towards the end of Wednesday's class. We have the same number of x's, so we can just take those away because we're going to subtract them, and then we have to just compare the integers. 8 and -3. And it's saying that +8 is less than or equal to -3. Well, because the terms with the x values are the same, or the coefficients, they will cancel, and 8 or with the variable are the same is probably what that drop down says. They will cancel, and 8 is less than or equal to -3 is false, is not true. It's incorrect. It'll never be true, so this problem will have no solution. Match the inequality with its graph. Well, first we're going to have to solve. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Imagine I did that in my head, and then divide by the 7 to get b is less than or equal to 2. All right, that looks like correct answer would be this one, because the border point is at 2, and it is a solid dot, arrow to the left. Okay, problem 11. Here I would, again, subtract 2 on both sides, get 18 on the right. Remember to work outside in. -6g is here. divide by a -6, and reverse the sign. Here I get g is less than or equal to -3. All right, so that's going to match with this graph here. Match the inequality with its graph. Well, first I'm going to distribute. Get 6 minus 3f is less than or equal to 15. All right, and here I would subtract the 6 from both sides. Get a 9 here, less than or equal to -3f is what I bring down. Divide by the -3 and circle my inequality because I divided by a negative. F is greater than or equal to a -3. All right, that looks like this very last option right here. All right, problem 13. Solve this one. So a lot of two-step equations here. We're just going to add 3, and get 10 on the right-hand side is on the less than, sorry, my sign went up there, 2x. Divide by the 2 and get x is greater than 5. That's going to be my solution. And it looks like an arrow to the right, at 5. Open circle because less ink, arrow to the right. All right, on this one, number 14, let's start by subtracting 7 from both sides because that's our outside in number. That gives me a -16 is less than or equal to -8v. Okay, I'm going to divide by the -8 here and circle this symbol because I divided by a negative. All right, v here is going to be on the small side, equal to +2, and I like to reverse that so that I can graph it. +2 and arrow to the left, solid dot, arrow to the left. All right, here, 2 is greater than -3t minus 10 plus 10. Man, so many two-step equations. -3t, divide by the -3 and circle my sign. That gives me t is greater than the -4. That's how I read it backwards. And I can put it forward. So t is with the big side, -4, arrow to the right at -4. Open circle this time, arrow to the right. All right, subtract 4 from both sides here, and we get w over 2 is greater than 1. Multiply by the 2 to undo it. That's going to give me w is greater than 2. Okay, I'm going to do an open circle here, arrow to the right. Number 17, subtract the 3 first. Get r over -4 is less than or equal to 3. Multiply by a -4 on both sides. And when I multiply by the negative, circle that sign right there. R is going to end up on the greater than or equal to side of -12. So that means solid dot here and arrow to the right. Right here, we've got to distribute. So I'm going to do 6 is greater than or equal to -6 times a plus -12. Because I do +2 times -6, that's -12. Start by adding 12 to both sides. And we get 18 is greater than or equal to -6a, and divide by that -6. And don't forget to circle this. We're going to reverse it. A is on the greater than side now, equal to -3. And how I'm going to flip that around so that it's easier to graph. And that's going to be a solid dot at -3 and an arrow to the right. Okay. 19. All right. First, I'm going to start adding. I'm going to add the 2m to both sides because I want the m to just be on one side. If you added 3m, that's fine. Either way will work. If I did it correctly, I would get 4 is greater than 7. Negative 3 plus 2, that's a negative 1m. Subtract the 7, and we get negative 3 greater than negative 1m. Divide by that negative 1 to get rid of it, and circle our sign. M is now on the greater than side with a positive 3. And to reverse that is m greater than 3. All right, that matches here. All right, on this one, I noticed the 8 ends are the same on both sides. That means it's a weird problem. All I need to do is subtract them from both sides, like I taught you guys, and all I'm going to get is 2 is less than or equal to negative 9. Well, is that true or false? False. That means no solution here. Remember, if we get a true answer there, it would mean all real numbers. And this step here, guys, that I left off is minus 8n. Minus 8n, which is why there's no n's left. They're all gone, and all that's left is my integers. Okay, error analysis. Describe and correct the error. Well, let's see here. They're testing out the number 8 here, and then they get 4 plus 2. 6 is less than, and they say 8 is not in the solution set. Well, they're incorrect because it has the less than or equal to. So the final step is just the wrong conclusion. The inequality is true. It means that 8 is in the solution set. Answer first. The first choice. Okay, 22. Write the sentence as an inequality. A number n plus 7, I always go right in order, is less than or equal to 9. That's it. All right, on the next one, tell whether the value is a solution of the inequality. That means putting 2 where the r is. So I'm going to rewrite it with 2 for the r. 2 plus 4 is greater than 8. Well, that would mean 6 is greater than 8. That is incorrect. So no, that is not a solution. Okay, 24 is practicing with the older graphing. Here, more ink means more ink, so I'm going to fill in the dot here. And because I can fill in the arrow to the left, I do arrow to the left. Okay, graph the inequality, sort of similar. Again, W is on the right here, so I'm going to flip it around, put it on the bigger side because it was on the bigger side. W is greater than negative 2. That's a little bit easier. Open circle, arrow to the right. Okay. Which number would you add or subtract from each side of the inequality to solve it? Well, I would subtract 11 from both sides to solve because it's a one-step equation. So I would subtract. Oops. Different program this time, not as easy to use. Subtract 11 here. And our final problem. What would we do? We'd solve it by adding 4 here. And we get x is less than negative 1. The solution is x less than negative 1. And how am I going to graph that? With an open circle at negative 1 and an arrow to the left. All right, guys, that concludes our study guide. Hopefully that's a good review of chapter 4 so far. With a lot of two-step inequalities in the middle. All right, I thank your minds and your hearts, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.